get started here. Well, welcome everyone. We're excited to have you join us for this session of Global Entrepreneurship Week. So we are in day 3 of a full week of events. So we're excited to have you here in the space. My name is Cameron Law, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Carlson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And I'm joined by one of my team members here. We have Arlene Miranda, who can give you the virtual wave there. And then the moderator for the session today that you'll get to know in a little bit. Dr. Shirsat is one of our faculty board members, and we've enjoyed having him advise and support our work at the center. One of the things that we offer is this week called Global Entrepreneurship Week, and I just want to share a little bit more about what the week entails. So we're actually joining a global community. So we actually have 200 countries around the globe that are going to be running Global Entrepreneurship Week campaigns. And so we're joining this kind of global movement around what entrepreneurship plays in terms of the building our solutions for social and our economic base as a community. So we're really excited to join this campaign. We are even more proud that Sac State and the Carlson Center, we are making kind of the national leaderboard. So we are within the top 5 in the nation for number of activities run, as well as coordinating a region. The Sacramento region is in the top 5 as well. So we're really excited about the campaign that's been put together. And we can't do it without our amazing partners. So we have our title sponsor, which is Western Health Advantage. They came in and invested in the Sac State and Carlson Center about 4 years ago to endow this offering of Global Entrepreneurship Week, and making sure that this week is a part of every Sac State student's journey while on campus. And so we're excited to lean into their effort and appreciate all of their support. We then have Wells Fargo, who is our Spark Venture Competition sponsor, and we will be hosting this event tonight at 5 o'clock in the Carlson Center. If you're not familiar with where that is, we are located in the library. So come check it out. We have 10 amazing startups that will be pitching their ideas and competing for $20,000 in cash awards. And they're broken into 2 different tracks: a social venture track where they're speaking about some of their impact that they're making, and then your kind of traditional for-profit scalable startup. And then lastly, we have our startup sponsors, which is SMUD and Sandhill Global Advisors, and then our idea sponsor, the City of Roseville. And so we're excited to have you here for this discussion, and I'm going to turn it over to our partner, Dr. Shirsat, who will share more, and I will stop my screen. But thank you again for the partnership with the College of Health and Human Services, and thank you all for being here in the space.
Thank you so much, Cameron. My name is Dr. Shirsat. I'm faculty in the Department of Recreation, Park and Tourism Administration, and I welcome you all to this session on behalf of the Committee of Impactful Innovation and Entrepreneurship in Health and Human Services. The session name is Healthcare Professional and Entrepreneurs. The format of this session is very simple. It will start out with an introduction of our panel, and then 40 to 45 minutes of panel discussion. And then last 10 minutes is for question and answers. So please save your questions for the last. When you're asking questions, please turn on your camera, your microphone, raise your hand virtually, and we will let you ask your questions, and then we'll get started. So once again, welcome everybody. Our first guest today is Carolyn Ecker, who is founder of Developmental Therapy Services of Sacramento. Carolyn earned her master's in occupational therapy at Samuel Merritt College in Oakland, California. Her primary area of practice has been pediatrics for over 16 years. Carolyn started Developmental Therapy Services of Sacramento in 2003. It started as a small private practice with just her. In 2021, the company continued to expand by adding speech and feeding therapy services and changing its name to Developmental Therapy Services of Sacramento. Now DTS of SAC is a company of 13 clinicians ready to provide occupational speech and feeding services to the greater Sacramento area. Welcome, Caroline. Our second speaker today is Karen Fittinger, who is founder of Bright Star Therapies in Sacramento and Roseville. Karen graduated with a Master's of Science degree in Speech, Language, Pathology, and Audiology from CSU of Sacramento, so our very own. The following year, in 2003, she opened Bright Star Therapies, a pediatric clinic with locations in Sacramento and Roseville. and specializing in speech, language, and occupational therapy for children of all ages. Bright Start Therapies has been in the community for over 15 years. Their motto has always been, let's grow together. Welcome, Karen. And our third guest today is Lee Langer-Worf, founder of Butte Primary Physical Therapy in Chico. He received his DPT from the University of Southern California in 2004. In 2007, he opened Butte Primary Physical Therapy in Chico, California. The clinic has grown to a practice with 6 PTs and 1 PTA. In addition to orthopedic physical therapy, this clinic provides aquatic physical therapy and immediate post-operative care at the adjacent outpatient surgery center. He has been a district chair and treasurer for California Physical Therapy Association and is on a number of committees and work groups at a local, state, and national level. Welcome, Lee. So this is going to be a sort of a discussion, question and answer. I'm going to start off with a very simple question, and whoever wants to go first can. To our panel members, why did you choose this career path?
I'll start. It's always an interesting story. Kind of fell into occupational therapy and was actually going to be a physical therapist, and fell in love with Samuel Merritt, the actual college. And then they opened up an occupational therapy program, and I went and explored that at Samuel Merritt and decided that that might be a better path for me, and just kind of fell into it, luckily, and found a career that I absolutely adore and am blessed to be in.
Thank you. Karen?
If I go next.
Sure.
Me too. I think I kind of fell into it. I took a sign language class while in college, and the professor was a speech language pathologist. And I had never heard of the field, honestly, at that point. My career path then was a drama major, and I wasn't still figuring things out, but I met her and just fell in love with the field and knew that was the direction I wanted to take.
Thank you so much for sharing.
So for me, I'm one of the weird ones. I have known since 7th grade that I wanted to be a physical therapist. We took a tour of a local hospital, and I actually ended up touring the occupational therapy department. I found out years later, and it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. You get paid to help people. I think this is what I wanted to do. And so I considered pediatrics. I considered psychology. Pediatrics was a little too monotonous for me to be a pediatrician, but and I thought about psychology, but I didn't want people to be complaining at me all day. So now I listen to people complain at me all day anyway. So it's a great profession, very rewarding, and I love every aspect of it.
I like when you say people complain. Okay, well, thank you so much for letting us know. So what is entrepreneurship for you? Do you consider yourself as entrepreneur?
I guess I'll go again. I guess I don't. It's so interesting that I know that I had the questions, but I think it was a path that I followed, and I just kind of, I don't know, maybe I fall into all the things in my life, but just kind of slowly followed that path and found that I loved working with all of the clinicians and growing and expanding and developing myself as just a human, as who knew I was going to do HR, who I knew I was going to do those other things. So I suppose I fit into the definition, but no, I never would have worn that hat prior to this. So thank you. Now I have a new hat.
Absolutely. So does it mean that when you're an entrepreneur, you're wearing variety of hats, like you said, HR and leader, and doing a bunch of things? How does that make you feel?
Yeah, you really have to take on all types of roles. And I think, for myself, I was that kid that always had the lemonade stand, always had a little side business as a kid. So, I had a little crew that worked for me during a raking business. And so I think I just was that child. And so, coming up through the program, I knew pretty early on I probably would open a business, just because of my background and also being in the managerial positions. But as far as the multiple hats, you do it all, and you learn it all. And probably the best advice I always say is do learn it all, do educate yourself in areas you've never done before. HR, stay up on all those laws and regulations. Accounting wasn't my thing either. That's why I went into speech pathology to stay away from all that math. But you're right back in it with all your own accounting. And so there is a multitude of hats you have to juggle and be well versed in.
Thank you, Karen. How about you, Lee?
Yeah, Carolyn and Karen, I think you both hit it on the head. I don't think any of us in our training learned profit and loss statements, HR, payroll, any of those things. We jumped into it. My story, I grew up on my family's dairy in Durham. And so milking cows is much different than physical therapy, but at a widget level, it's different, but the business practices are exactly the same. You have to make money, you have to pay money, and it's all the same as far as that goes. I personally never had a desire to work for somebody my whole career. I knew going into graduate school that I was going to open my own business. I just didn't know when. And then the opportunity presented itself 3 years after I graduated, and I opened my practice. So I don't know that there's always a timeline on this. It's just whatever seems to work in your universe.
So which means that you all are learning on the go all the time, always putting yourself on any of the challenges and taking on the challenges at any time. But out of curiosity, what is that one area that you feel is most difficult when you're trying to take on these challenges and learning new things while you are also focusing on your major areas? And anybody can go.
For me, one thing that you learn along the way is just who to trust and who not to trust. You're not always going to meet someone who has your best interest at heart. And so you do need to, like I said, educate yourself. And so you're going to hire professionals in areas that maybe you're not, well versed in, or you want to work in, like, immediately I got a payroll company. And you have to research those payroll companies, and some are good and some are not so good. When you go to get your first lease, if you're going to have a brick and mortar, knowing all the ins and outs of a lease and working with someone, a leasing agent maybe, to help you protect yourself. So there's a lot of ways you learn over time and through experience to start protecting yourself, and then who to, again, trust along the way, because everything won't always be perfect.
I learned something new today. Decide who you trust. Thank you. So my next question is, what do you enjoy the most about your work?
I have enjoyed, all of the things. When I first started, I adore working with kids. I love working with families. I love making a difference in their lives. At some point in my career, I worked in skilled nursing, and I found that very difficult. I feel like it's sort of a personality and how you view life and how things work for you. But just to work with kids, there was just providing hope and growth for families to the best of their abilities and the child's ability. And then just lately, I really have enjoyed challenging myself. There are days when I'm tired and I think, what have I done as we've been growing? But I love it. I love the challenge of learning all the new things and trying to keep up with all the new things. Trying is a key word. I feel like sometimes I'm not successful, but that's okay. I'm okay with that also. So I think just the growth potential is amazing, and I love that piece of it. And it's what keeps me going.
You said that so well. I think that's exactly my sentiment. That working with the family and the kids is so rewarding. It makes my day, but also just that ability to challenge myself constantly is something I thrive for. So you hit it right on the nail. That's exactly what I would say.
And I would third that, having a growth mindset and always finding something new to push yourself to be better is great. I mean, I love patient care. I love treating people and everything. But now I've learned, okay, I what really pushes me even more is, okay, how do I engage my team better? How do I motivate them and make it a great place and experience for them? Because honestly, I spend more time in my office with my staff than I do with my wife and kids. So they better be decent humans. And how do I tap into their potential as well?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Now I have another question, which I'm going to ask in two sections, two ways. What did anything about your field surprise you? And, or you can answer this way as well. What is your daily routine, or what does your day look like? And if anything surprises, what do you do?
I think just field wide, one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised by entering the field was just the vast places that you could go. You could kind of do anything you want. If I get tired of pediatrics, which I don't foresee, but I could go work with skilled nursing. I could go to acute care. I could go to hand therapy. I could go, and I think it's similar for all of our disciplines, but just being able to expand and learn new things within our own field. And then just day to day, I'm just constantly surprised by the things I don't know. And luckily I like that. So I get by, but it is surprising. Like, okay, I didn't know that. Great. Let's figure this out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think also, just the day-to-day, like you said, the things that just surprise you and you think, wow, after this amount of time, no, I didn't know that. That is something new. So it is an internal growth period, and it's great. And you never know where you're going to learn something new from. It could be from anyone. An intern in my office, may have something brilliant and I've never heard it before. And that's awesome. So being open to that learning experience from any direction.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think for me, when I came out of school, I felt like there were like 3 or 4 different buckets you could practice in. And I've been very excited to see that was a erroneous thought. There are an exponential number of options, choices, and areas that you can work in. And if you don't foresee it, this next generation of PTs, I can only speak for, coming through, man, they really want to push the envelope and do some amazing things, which is great. It's tough for an older therapist like myself now to not look at things as, well, it's this or this, as opposed to it's any of this. That's a little difficult because that's not how my brain has worked for years, but it's great to see it. And then to your second question, as far as like a typical day, I think you ladies could probably agree with me. There isn't a ton of work-life balance with this because you have to do everything. So my day starts at 4:30. I get up, I have some prayer time and some coffee, and then get started putting deposits into QuickBooks, kind of looking at the money that's coming in versus the bills that are coming up that I need to be paying, and budgeting, kind of projecting, looking at the schedule for the day, sending it to my interns with which patients they're going to see. And then usually my wife's up by that time, and we do a couple of things together, some prayer time there, and then work some more on some things, different projects, and then go to the clinic and treat patients after eating breakfast and getting a workout in. So it's a very you can expect where I'm going to be at any given time, but it's great and I love it.
Wow, 4:30 a.m. in the morning, that's got to be a very, very long day. So how do you pace yourself for such a long day every single day? And have this always been like that from the beginning, or it moved or changed throughout the journey of so many years?
I don't know about you ladies, but I felt like when I started my business, it's like you find this extra gear, you find this extra little bit of in reserve that you didn't realize you had, and you push yourself to that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think for me, it definitely changed. Initially, I was on that really long work schedule, 12, 14-hour days. I would say for the first probably 5 or 6 years, that was the pace I went. But now, almost 20 years into it, I do have work-life balance. And my day starts much more gentle with, cup of coffee, some yoga. I ease myself into the day. And I never quite know what my day is going to completely entail. Although I may have a schedule, there's a lot of kinks that can come up in that schedule pretty quickly. As soon as I hear that phone ringing before I've hit the office, I know there's maybe some things I need to deal with immediately in the morning that I wasn't expecting to. So my day can shift depending on what comes up. But it definitely has been in a trajectory of becoming more work-life balance for me now over the years.
Yeah, same with me. I definitely started off with those 10, 12, 14-hour days. I was always really good about being done by no later than 1 o'clock on Friday. That was always my gift to myself. Friday afternoons were mine and I had the weekend. But the other days I put in my time. I saw 10 clients in a day. I guess it's a pro and a con of being your own employer, right? There is no overtime. You work, you don't get paid. But I do say that I have been very good about embedding work-life balance. We expanded a couple years ago, and somehow I ended up with a shower at my office. And so our office is on the river, so I get to run and come back and shower in the middle of the day, which is lovely. And there are days when my clinicians and my office managers say, don't you think you should go for a run now? And they remind me that I need to go get balanced.
You're living my dream. I've wanted the shower in my business. I've talked about it over and over. It's so funny to hear you say that, because you don't know how many times I've said, all I need to do is put a little bed in my office and a shower in there and I'm good to go.
I have to tell you, who knew that would be a game changer, but I would never not have a shower now. I'm just telling you. So keep that in mind, everybody. Wherever you go, whatever you're doing, shower is a key thing.
I did put the gym in. So I have the gym and the massage chair in the office. I just need that shower, I think, to balance it out.
Well,
It is a nice feature. We have one because we have a pool in our clinic and for patients to rinse off. And it is nice because I live in the country. So sometimes going for a run when it's rainy and stuff isn't optimal. So I can come here and go for a run where there's sidewalks and then come back and shower.
Well, those also is exciting. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm gonna take you to a little bit of past question. What advice would you give to your younger self? How did you start? What were you thinking of? I know you all had some sort of idea. Some were thinking about it, some were not thinking about it. But how did you bring that idea to yourself? And what can you tell to your younger self today that you could have done differently? Or same, doesn't matter.
I guess I'll start again. So I have to say, it's one of those questions where I think, well, there should have been something I would have done differently, but I am happy with the path that I took. Unlike my cohort, it sounds like I took a long time to get into private practice, and that afforded me the opportunity to work in multiple settings. So I think from that perspective, it gave me, I worked in a special care nursery, I worked in schools, so I kind of got to see all of those different areas, so that when I did go into private practice, I could pull from all of those different experiences and do all of that. And I did it, my practice grew slow and steady. For a long time, it was just me. And I'm happy with that choice. Although again, it sounds like the other panelists did it differently. And I think that's amazing too. Their paths were just different.
Yeah. For me, I got the opportunity when I graduated to open another clinic within an existing company that had been around for many years. So I came in and they had done adult therapy, and I opened up an early intervention unit to their existing company. So I got to practice basically opening in a clinic and seeing how that worked, maybe working out a few of those, things that I didn't quite know yet. And 1 year after that experience, I opened up Bright Start Therapy. So, and when I opened up, I just went for it. I opened up a big space. I started off with multiple therapists and just went for it. And, I think it's just the timing in your life. I had the opportunity to do that. I didn't have children at that time. And so I didn't have a lot of other responsibilities outside of opening this business that would take me away from that. So I just opened it up and I had the time to devote. And it was those long hours initially, putting everything together. And then just went from there.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah. The thing that I learned first from, I bought a book called The How-To Guide for Starting a PT Practice from the private practice section. And that helped a lot. One of the first things I learned was get an accountant, get an attorney, and get them on the same page. That was the most important thing I learned at first. And that was very helpful for me. Pretty much the big thing that I would go with to tell myself back then, because I feel like I've made every mistake you can possibly make in business, and maybe there's a few more I'll still hit before I'm done, hopefully, because you learn a lot more from your mistakes than you do from your accolades. But don't be afraid to make those mistakes. But the big thing I would tell myself back then is the concepts Jim Collins talks about in his Good to Great books is hire the right people, get the right people on the bus, get the right people in the right seats on the bus, and get the wrong people off the bus. I look back on some people who I've had here that I let just kind of stay here. I wouldn't accept that now. I make sure we get the right people on our team. And if there's somebody who isn't the right person, we try to gently assist them to something different.
I love that. Yeah,
Me too.
sorry. That is so true. Thank you. That is a great piece of wisdom, I think, and so true. It impacts everybody if you have someone who's slowing your bus down, if you will.
Yeah. And if you're slow to respond to that as well. So I love that you said that. And the good attorney, good accountant, definitely right from the get-go, good payroll company, and I would say a good leasing agent. Those 4 items will steer you on a good start, a good path to start. And then along the way, you're going to make mistakes and be okay with it, because like you said, that's how we learn best. And I think the best advice I got when I first opened the business was that you're going to make mistakes and try to be reactive right away, but also try to be proactive to what could come up and think of those things that might come up that you can maybe prevent. So we learn from it all. That's for sure.
The best part that I heard right now is please make mistakes and learn from your mistakes. And thank you for sharing that. That is one of the most important things to know when you're running a business or even going for a job. You learn from your mistakes, you grow from your mistakes, and there's nothing wrong in making a mistake, but being afraid to make a mistake is the biggest mistake, is what I feel.
Yes.
So that is a good segue to get into last question of this this first personal career section, which we have been talking about. Do you have a story about any challenges, a short story that you remember that really challenged you to do something which was out of the box and which you never did? And how did you learn from that?
I'll start, I guess, this time. One of my first clients had a speech disorder that I was not real familiar with. And it was the area of childhood apraxia speech. And I didn't have a lot of information on that particular disorder. And here I was faced with a client that needed my help, and I didn't feel quite equipped. So I think that challenge led me down to the path where I've been today, really loving severe speech disorders and that particular area, childhood apraxia speech, because I had to initially, from the very get-go, get myself educated quickly in that disorder and figure out how I could best serve this family. So that was quite a challenge to overcome. And then I think more on the business professional side, that first company that I did partner with, there was some challenges there, just ethics within their company that didn't align with mine, that I didn't uncover till I was there. And so being in that situation, and knowing that you're in the wrong situation and you need to get out, and not being afraid to just take a leap of faith and just leave. So that came up in that job situation, and that was something I wasn't planning for, I wasn't ready for, but you know, you got to follow your instincts and know when things are not right and when to make a move.
Amazing. Thank you, Karen. All right, we're going to move into next section. We're going to talk a little bit about industry and your particular industry. How do you see your field changing in the next few years? What do you think are the future challenges in your areas?
I would say, I don't know if I should put the word dreaded, but I just feel like COVID has basically changed every industry. And I think that in part for occupational therapy in particular, it just, I think, opened our eyes to the potential of not just virtual things, but how to engage with families and how to engage with kids. And I think in our field, it helped us become better at incorporate. I feel like that was always my passion, was to train families and to get them doing the therapy at home, if you will, because, you know, I get them for a little bit of time every week, but the families with them all the time. But I think that inspired just me. And I really feel like I've seen it globally in the profession to engage more with the families and to find different ways to make that happen and to be productive for our kids and our families.
I think for the PT profession, I was actually just on a webinar at 9 o'clock this morning, talking about this. The challenges that are coming forward are staffing and finding the right people and motivating them so that they stay with your company. That's why I love and I'm happy that I was invited to do this, because, you know, we need to be thinking earlier. We need to be going out and talking to high school kids, to you college kids at Sac State, to try to get you going the direction of whichever of these three professions, which are phenomenal, just so that we have more people, we have more practitioners out there to meet the demand. Because to Carolyn's point, you know, COVID changed things. And I think in the PT profession, they were saying that like 10% of people who have a prescription actually access physical therapy. Well, the negative positive of COVID is that a whole lot more people started coming to our clinics because they couldn't have surgery. They had more time. They were injuring themselves gardening or whatever. So we see this just exponential increase of patients, and we don't have the practitioners to meet the demand. So it's this catch-22. Great, the profession's progressing. We don't have enough practitioners. So those are going to be the challenges in the future.
Thank you.
And I think, you know, in the area of speech pathology, having, you know, children that were not socially engaged in school and other activities, also the mask wearing for, you know, children who are developing speech, not being able to visualize, you know, speech production, that really had an impact on our field. And so in the birth to 3 category, which was one of my favorite areas, early intervention, huge growth in that area of need. And then the same, hard time hiring, very hard with staffing. And so staffing didn't increase, but the population increased. So I think that's definitely one of the challenges that will probably continue over the next few years.
Thank you. I think that's a good segue to the next question. Are there a lot of job opportunities in your field? And also, this is my personal question a little bit. Has the Great Resignation phenomenon impacted your area somehow in last 1 year or so?
I can say for sure, there's definitely a shortage of OTs in, I would say, just all areas. I think that there are certainly different workplaces that might be a bigger draw where they have a bigger pool, but just generally speaking, and I can definitely speak to speech also, which I won't jump on your train, but yeah, they're hard to find. And I would say, as far as the resignation, I haven't seen it in that vein. I would say that hasn't fluctuated for us from that perspective.
Good to know. Thank you.
I think in PT, everything Carolyn said, absolutely agree with. I feel like I'm seeing a few more people who, like on ZipRecruiter, I get an email every day from them with people looking for positions. And just this morning, for example, there were 4 people on the email I got, and 3 of those 4 were looking for clinical positions, but 1 was moving out of practice to try to find a job in IT. And I've seen marketing, I've seen a few other different things. So it's not the great resignation per se, but it's the great lateral movement to something different that's not clinic based. So then that takes that many more practitioners out of the field.
Interesting. Thank you. Karen, do you want?
Yeah, we've definitely seen the same trend. I mean, I think you already covered it pretty much from what we've seen as well.
Sure. Do these websites, Indeed, LinkedIn, or the other one that you just mentioned, I forget, ZipRecruiter, thank you. Are these websites impactful? Do you really find people on these websites, or do you find people coming in your business and submitting their resumes the old way, better way to hire people? Which one is better?
Definitely the online companies, but I have seen a change in the amount of applicants. So I've used all those platforms. I've used ZipRecruiter, Indeed. For an example, we put an ad up on Indeed and we might have 20 applicants, where now it might be 1 or 2. So I do see a giant shift of how many applicants are coming through versus just even, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So, pre-COVID, definitely higher numbers. Post-COVID, definitely much lower numbers. And those avenues do work, though. They're still the best avenue to go for us anyway.
So you prefer the digital era, the digital way to get applicants. How about Caroline and Lee?
I would say I don't know if I prefer it, in the sense that I feel like I'm very old school. I keep my calendar in a book. I'm kind of the worst at my office to all those things. But I will say, probably about a year ago, I had someone hand deliver a very lovely, on very high quality paper, a resume. And I literally passed it around the office and was like, feel this, isn't this so nice? But I think just as far as reaching people and getting the word out there, I feel like that's where people are going anyway. So you kind of have to go to where they are if you want to get the responses.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I still remember, I think I've had 1 or 2 people who've come in here with a resume of the therapists I've hired in my career, and some that I've found online. But really, the lion's share of people I've hired have been interns of mine who come here from schools all the way from Rhode Island, so I mean, I think that's the bigger thing, is we have to reimagine and rethink how we're doing things, and we need to build relationships with educational programs, because really building that relationship with the student is what's going to bring them to your practice all the way from across the country or whatever.
Interesting. So when you're hiring these people, and you said you had some interns, you had somebody who walked in, what is it that you're looking in them? Are you looking at the human connection aspect of them, or are you looking at what's on their resume, their experience? What are those 1 or 2 things that you're really looking at into a person that you want to hire?
I'd love to answer that one. For me, it's definitely personality. I can teach the skill set. So for me, I'm not looking to see what they have already, experienced, as much as I'm looking to see, do they have the set of qualities that I feel that are teachable and that I can really reach this person? Because in our field, we all know this. Training is ongoing, and it's never going to end. And as we've each stated, we're in a state of learning always, and challenging ourselves in that area. So we need, or I should just say for myself, I need someone that I really feel like I can teach, that they have the aptitude to both not only learn, but take that constructive, feedback that we have to give and turn it into a positive. So that's very important for me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Karen.
I 100% agree. Beautifully said. Thank you. The only thing I would add to that I have found is a critical quality in a clinician is that flexibility piece, especially in pediatrics. Things constantly change. We work with kids. Someone's going to get sick. You need to figure out how to change, how to adapt. But otherwise, yeah, I can teach the skills. It's the human connection that really makes the difference.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I think that those are what I look for in my practice. The only other thing I would add is I've changed recently that now in order to come work here, you have to be willing to do an orthopedic residency program. I will pay for the residency, but in exchange for 2 years of commitment. But that's something that is an absolute non-negotiable. If you don't want to do an orthopedic residency and better yourself, that's fine. You can take some time, but you won't be coming to work at this facility.
Thank you.
Work on the interns. I think that is a great way to hire because several of my therapists did start off as interns. And then they did their postgraduate work with me, and then now are therapists for me. So it's a great way to get to know that person well before you hire them, and see what their skill set is, and see how they work within your agency. So I'm a huge advocate for hiring interns and working with interns.
And I will agree with that. And the opposite of that is I have found that it allows them the opportunity to work with you and know if your facility is a good match, because that's a two-way street. But yeah, interns are definitely a great way to do a long-term interview, basically.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So what I'm hearing is go in with a good attitude, learn, and make those meaningful human connections.
Yes.
Thank you. So a little bit of a different question now. Is there any common misconception about your field? Do you hear something that you believe it's not true about your field? And how do you answer to that?
I will say for occupational therapy, it's not quite as often in pediatrics, but when I used to work in skilled nursing facilities, I would go in to see an adult, usually an older adult, and they would look at me and say, I don't need a job. I'm retired. What are you doing here? I don't need another occupation. So that is hands down, I think, the best/worst miscommunication about our profession is I'm not finding you a job, I promise. I'm helping you with the job of living. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, and to jump in on that too, in occupational therapy, I have parents in the early intervention. You probably hear this all the time. Well, a child doesn't have an occupation. And yes, they do. They have an occupation of play. So I think, that's a misnomer. And in the speech realm, I think because it's speech and language, people leave off that language piece and think that we just do articulation therapy. And they don't realize that, speech therapy is a huge umbrella that goes anywhere from, dysphagia, however you want to use the term, but it goes anywhere from that area all the way, through multiple areas of language, and feeding. And so there's big umbrella of speech and language that I think a lot of families don't understand quite yet. We can educate them with.
Yeah, from our perspective, I think that people think they just come in here and we're just going to fix them. They don't have to do any of the work on their own, and that's a misnomer. But more globally, I'll speak to business things. Even employees I found out after the fact they had this thought of us that we're just pulling down $500,000 a year in income, and nothing could be further from the truth. You do this because you love it. You might make a little bit more than your top employee, but it's not a whole lot. You do it because you just want to do things your way. You think you have a better way, and that's why. And figuring out your why of what that is. If it's to make $1 million, figure out something else.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to bring up, because the salaries of our employees put us in a range that it's not going to be that multi-million-dollar idea. So you have to love what you do, and you have to, like you said, that was me. You want to do it your way, and that's our thing that keeps us going.
Good advice. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to skip a few questions and I'm going to jump to the question about technical skills. And I would like to know, are there any particular technical skills in your area that you like to see, apart from, we talked about human connection and attitude and all those things, which are personal qualities, but are there any technical skills that you're always looking for? Is there a plus of having a certain type of certification or a certain type of education that you prefer?
I can say from our end, being licensed, that just component is already there in the sense of, do you have any certifications or licensure? We all have to have our licenses to provide the therapy services. I would say, as far as other technical, and in my mind, I jumped to technology. I think I've already professed that I am the worst at my practice with, I'm old school, I want paper pencil, and they drag me kicking and screaming into the new world. Oof, definitely dating myself, but I think it is an area of growth for all of us, and just a good way to get things done more succinctly and free us up for less paperwork and more time for our clients and less headaches. And I'm always searching for those things that can help do that. And so it is something that we talk about at interviews, some of those things that they might bring to us as a practice. What kind of exciting things have you done and what can you share? I'm always the biggest learner.
Thank you. Anything to add, Karen Lee? Okay. Well, another question that I was wondering to ask is there anything in your everyday life that you do, it could be very small change that you've made over the years, that has helped you to reach success at work? Any habit, any particular thing that you have done?
Yes, I think that just staying in tune with my profession, I'm constantly doing research. So I think just adding that, and it's something that I tell my staff constantly, to just stay up on everything. And that takes a little bit of daily input. So it's every day doing a little bit of, self-training for myself in the area of research, and keeping up on what's new out there that's ever changing. And there's so much to know. So just getting involved in it on a daily basis, I think, is a habit I just try to pick up.
Very good point. When we were kids, there was this story that we were told about who moved your cheese. And
I love that one.
and it was that daily habit of, going behind the cheese and learning the new things, new skills, everything single day. You can never stop learning, and you'll fall behind. And that's a good advice, Karen, that I heard from you. Thank you so much. Caroline?
I think the only thing I would add to that is something we've already discussed, and that's really just surrounding yourself with people who do have strengths in those other areas. For example, my clinical manager is amazing, and I don't have to know all of the ins and outs of some of the billing procedures and those kinds of things, because I have someone who can do that with me and for me. And if I need to know, she's happy to train me. But if I don't need to know, that opens me up to have space for other things that I really have to do. And I think just surrounding yourself with people, again, that we've talked about, that you trust and that are good at their jobs. So being able to let certain things go, which initially was really difficult for me, honestly. I'm a little bit of a control freak, which I probably don't, well, maybe I do come off that way, but maybe I don't come off that way, but I really am a control freak. And so being able to let those things go and trusting that someone else can take care of it, and they're going to care as much as I do, and they're going to do a good job. I think that was really critical, just an important thing that I grew to develop and still practice daily, of what can I let go and what do I need to hold on to?
So delegation is the key, learning to delegate to people. Thank you, Carolyn. Lee?
I think we're all there, Carolyn. That's why we got into this. But I think the best thing that I've learned is listening to Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. The one about seek first to understand and then to be understood was absolutely a mind-altering thought for me. I wasn't always the best boss in the sense of I too much wanted, well, no, I'm the boss. This is what we're doing. And this is how I have to have the answers because I'm the boss. Well, if you realize that you need to listen better and sometimes you don't have the answers and maybe somebody else does, as Karen was saying earlier, that's really, freeing of you to know it doesn't all ride on you, but that first has to be to understand the other person's point of view first and foremost, be it a patient, an employee, a referral source, an insurance company, whatever it is, you need to understand the other person before you can say anything else. So it's kind of that, you have two ears and one mouth, and that should be what you do is listen more than you talk.
Absolutely.
Very good advice. Listen to people
And that book is great. That and the book that you mentioned as well, Humu Matisse, and another book that I love is Sway. Those three books are books I quote all the time as well. So I think those are good resources.
Absolutely. Well, those were my questions. Thank you so much for answering them. I know they were a lot. So now I'm going to open it up for everyone. If you have questions, please raise your hand virtually or put your questions in the chat section, and I'm happy to read for everybody. Questions, anybody? Robert?
Yeah, just a quick question. So thank you all. This has been fantastic. Just to hear your stories and how you went out there and did this. What do you say to students who are inspired by you today and think maybe they want to start early and they haven't graduated yet? What things should they be attuned to? Like, I know, a lot of us, our conventions, for example, have tracks where we can learn a little bit about these types of topics, but what other things should they be thinking about before they graduate if they're now inspired, to kind of get ahead in their thinking about maybe being their own private practitioner?
I would say for me, finding something that you care about. So if you're going to open your own practice, doing it in the part of your field that you care the most about, because I think we've all suggested and basically stated that you work a lot when you first do this, and it's because you care and you have passion. So if you can't find something that you truly love, then maybe you should wait a tick and really find that, because once you have that, you can do anything.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like if you have a passion, that's going to be the best thing you can have for yourself in starting a new business, because it's going to keep you going. And so follow what you love and what you know, and go that path, and everything else will follow with you. And that's probably the best advice of just getting into the right career path.
Yeah, I would say, and I just put up some books in the chat there that have been great for me. I think read, understand now, learn now, educate yourself as much as you can so you don't make the same mistakes that Carolyn and Karen and I all made. Try to make yourself better than we're starting out, because now's the time to really learn and do more.
I like the last one that you mentioned, Start With Why. Is that the one with by Simon Sinek?
Yes, and I'd watched his YouTube videos. I even included it in a talk I gave one time, and I never listened to that. I found out, the other thing was figure out, are you a better book reader or a listener? I found out I'm much better audio, so I listen to it all the time when I work out. And that's my time to really better myself. And sometimes I'll stop and make notes in the Audible app, and it's great for that. But yeah, until I actually read that book, I was like, oh, I've had my why this whole time. I just never wrote it down, so that was a great book and helpful.
That's a good one.
Yeah, one of the quotes that I absolutely love about Simon Sinek's book is, people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. And
right.
that is absolutely best thing. I had it written on my board for a very long time, is people always think about what you're doing, but they always buy into why you're doing it. The love that we mentioned, the passion that we have for our areas is what people really buy into.
I've actually put it on the top of my job offers that I send to people, this is our why.
Oh, I
Fantastic.
love that.
All right, any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat section, but I see one more book, I suppose. Arlene.
Yes, hello. So I can hear that culture really matters and having the right team members really matters. How do you recommend when you're in the hiring mode, being able to discern if it's a fit with the employee, the candidate that you're talking to? How do you go about evaluating that?
Good question.
Yeah, for me, I have a great book and it's Hiring for Personality, and it has some key questions in there that the interviewee doesn't necessarily know they're being interviewed on. So I think, getting down to those personality traits, I feel like I'm going to be able to coach that person, develop that person into a good therapist is key for me. So that's what I'm looking for. Someone
Yes.
that I feel like that I feel is the most coachable. And then I can bring out their best assets.
Wonderful, thank you.
Another question, Jill.
Hi there. Yeah, I was just wondering, since you are in healthcare wellness, when you're feeling off kilter or maybe a lack of passion or just something is going on where things aren't feeling well, whether it be mind or body, what are some of the practices that you implement to get back into balance?
I think that's a great question. I know for myself, I'm a runner. I should probably call myself a jogger now with my actual pacing, but I get out on the trail and I get back to nature. I'm by the river. I don't wear earbuds. I don't listen to music. I just take the time for me. So on a day-to-day basis. And then I honestly, for professionally, going to a continuing education class, whether it's one that I feel like I know 90% of the information, even if I just glean that one more thing, reminds me of my passion and my love and why I'm doing what I'm doing and how exciting to find, that's great, I'm gonna go try that right now. So I think professionally, just doing that continuing education and just rebalancing my passion for what I know I already love.
Personally, I've probably been through one of the biggest health challenges I've had to face this year. So your question really hits me because I've had to really evaluate, that work-life balance, bringing everything into perspective. So getting back to nature is definitely one of mine too. All things outdoors, whether it's boating or hiking and running, I love all those things. So just reminding yourself that you can take time for yourself. It's okay. It's okay to treat yourself, for the things that you need for yourself. Because if you're not in your best shape, then your company's not. It's top-down process. So keeping both our mind, spirit together with our passion, very important.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add to that. For me personally, prayer time's important. Exercising is a non-negotiable that has to happen. Taking time with my wife and my kids and talking to others in the profession. The reason my business probably isn't as profitable as it could be is because a lot of the extra money goes toward me going to 3 conferences a year and other meetings and stuff like that, because I just feel that's what keeps it going, is sharing ideas and that sense of community. That's so important.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and Lee, I remember earlier you were talking about what you do every morning. You pray, you have your coffee, your workout, and I think that's really great because you start the day off for you, and then you have more to share with everybody else. So yeah, thank you, all 3 of you, so much. I appreciate it.
All right, it's time up. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your stories, your knowledge, your experience, your advice. It all means a lot for us. We've really enjoyed listening to you. And I hope to see you someday in person and learn more from you. So thank you for joining us today. Have a great day, everyone.